Hey guys, tonight we travel back to the fading twilight of medieval India, to the crumbling capital of Delhi, in the year 1398 CE. When the city that once ruled half the subcontinent stands trembling beneath the shadow of a man named Timur. It's December, and the winter air hangs thick with dust and smoke. The narrow streets of Old Delhi are choked with beggars and broken soldiers. The mosques are still filled with the rhythm of prayer, but even the imams pray with fear. Outside the walls, the once green fields are empty. The harvest has failed, the granaries are bare. The empire that was supposed to last forever is now held together with nothing but memory and dust. You walk through the bazaars, and it feels like walking through a dream that's already ended. The jewelers' stalls stand half empty. The silk merchants whisper that caravans from the north no longer arrive. The city's wells are cracked, its gardens gone to thorn. Somewhere, you can hear the faint toll of a temple bell, a sound both ancient and helpless. Overhead, kites circle lazily. They always seem to know when death is coming. Inside the citadel of Siri, Sultan Nasir-ud-Din Mahmud Tughlaq sits on a gilded throne that feels heavier every day. He's a boy king in a man's war, a puppet of his minister Malik Sawar, a court of cowards and flatterers. His father and grandfather had ruled vast lands, Bengal, Gujarat, Sindh, but rebellion, corruption and famine have stripped the empire bare. Delhi, once the heart of the Muslim world in India, has become a shadow of itself. The Sultan's council chambers smell of fear. News from the borders arrives like funeral notices. Governors slain, fortresses fallen, armies vanishing into the dust. The nobles quarrel, the treasury is empty, and every man in power seems to be sharpening a knife, either for his enemy or for himself. Beyond the walls, plague lingers. They call it the Black Wind, and it spares no one. Corpses pile in the alleys, the holy men mutter of divine wrath, and in the palace, astrologers whisper that the stars themselves have turned against Delhi, and yet in the royal gardens music still plays. The Sultan's entertainers perform for a court that pretends the world is not ending. Perfumed candles burn, wine flows, and poets recite verses praising a glory that died decades ago. One of them begins to sing of the empire's founder, of Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, the builder of cities and conqueror of kings. The Sultan raises his hand. "Enough," he says quietly. "The past is not a song." Outside, the guards exchange uneasy glances, because everyone knows what the Sultan refuses to say. A storm is coming from the north, a storm born not of men, but of iron, fire, and faith. His name has already reached the city like a rumour of the apocalypse. Timur, son of the steppe, lord of Samarkand, descendant of Genghis Khan by claim and conviction. The merchants whisper that his armies are more numberless than stars, that his horses drink rivers dry, that he leaves no city standing behind him. The Sultan tries to laugh it off. "Timur?" he says, forcing a smile. "A raider, a thief. The mountains will swallow him before he reaches Delhi." But in the corners of the court, the generals exchange glances. They've seen what's left of Multan and Patna, cities that once defied Timur and are now nothing but smoke. The vizier, old and trembling, finally dares to speak. "Majesty," he says, "the Mongols who came before were but thunder. Timur is lightning. He strikes not to plunder but to purify." The Sultan turns away. "Then let the heavens purify themselves." That night in the great mosque, the prayers sound louder than usual. The people crowd the courtyards, their faces lifted toward a sky that gives no answer. A comet burns faintly in the west, its tail red as blood. Someone whispers, "It's a sign." The wolf is coming, and he is. Far beyond the horizon, across the snows of the Hindu Kush, the ground already trembles beneath the hooves of Timur's army. Tens of thousands of horsemen armoured in steel, banners streaming black and crimson. At their head rides a man with a limp, his eyes pale and unreadable, his voice cold as the steppe wind. He rides for glory, for gold, for God, and for Delhi. So before the slaughter begins, before the city drowns in its own blood, take a last look at what Delhi once was. a city of poets and palaces, of learning and light, standing like a lone candle in a storm that will not pass. You can smell the fear in the air, taste the dust of destiny on your tongue, and somewhere, deep within the walls, a child cries in the night, because even those too young to understand can feel the end coming. The wolves of Samarkand are on the move. Far to the northwest of Delhi, beyond the Oxus River and the deserts of Khorasan, the man who will burn empires stands in the icy courtyard of Samarkand. His city, his masterpiece, his mirror of heaven. Snow drifts between the minarets, and the turquoise domes gleam like frozen moons. Beneath those domes the air hums with hammering iron, neighing horses, and the shouts of men sharpening history into a weapon. His name is Timur ibn Taragai Barlas, though the world will call him Tamerlane, Timur the Lame. Born with a limp but armed with an iron will, he has built an empire out of dust and blood, forged it with patience, and ruled it with terror. To his enemies, he is a butcher. To his followers, he is destiny itself. You watch him now, pacing slowly through the courtyard, his limp barely visible beneath the heavy folds of his fur-lined cloak. His face is weathered, his beard streaked with grey, but his eyes, sharp, pale, unblinking, look like they could cut through stone. He walks as if measuring the world beneath his boots. Behind him stand the banners of a dozen conquered lands: Persia, Transoxiana, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Khwarezm. Cities have fallen before him like stalks of wheat. He has razed Isfahan, Baghdad, Tabriz, and Herat, piling skulls into pyramids as tall as watchtowers. Each ruin he leaves behind becomes a monument to his perfectionism, because to Timur, conquest is not chaos, it is art. In his council hall, the walls glitter with jade and gold. His generals kneel as he sits on his throne, carved from ivory and inlaid with emerald. A map lies before him, drawn in ink and blood. His finger traces it slowly southward, across Afghanistan, across Punjab, stopping at the jewel of Hindustan, Delhi. He stares at it for a long moment. "There," he says finally, his voice low and deliberate. "There lies the throne of the infidels." A murmur ripples through the chamber. His chief advisor, Pir Muhammad, dares to ask, "My lord, the Sultan of Delhi is Muslim. His people follow the same faith as ours. Why attack him?" Timur's expression does not change. "Faith," he says softly, "is not enough. Delhi is weak, corrupt, and rich. Its rulers have abandoned the law of God for gold. If I do not punish them, who will?" He pauses, then adds with the faintest of smiles, "Besides, Samarkand needs new marble." The generals laugh nervously. Timur's sense of humour is as sharp as his sword. In truth, the motives behind his invasion are layered like armour. Faith, yes. He believes himself a servant of divine wrath, but also greed, glory, and the restless hunger of a man who has conquered everything else. The empire he built from the ruins of the Mongols must feed itself with conquest or die. And so his eyes turn toward India, the land of jewels, spices, and elephants, the land that every conqueror dreams of holding, if only for a moment. Outside, the army assembles, tens of thousands of men from every corner of his dominion, Turks, Mongols, Persians, and Tatars, all united under the black banner of the wolf. Their horses stamp and snort in the cold. Smiths hammer out swords that glint like mirrors. Mullahs chant blessings for holy war. The air smells of snow, iron, and incense. Timur watches them from the palace terrace, his breath misting in the air. "They say Delhi is the paradise of the world," he murmurs to his son Miransha. "We shall see if paradise burns." Miransha bows. "And if it does not, father?" Timur smiles faintly. "Then we will make it burn." Preparations stretch for months. Caravans of camels carry supplies, dried meat, grain, tents, siege engines dismantled for travel. Scouts ride ahead to map the treacherous passes through the Hindu Kush. Envoys are sent south with false promises of peace to lull the Sultan into complacency. And as the snow begins to melt, the army moves, an ocean of hooves and banners flowing southward through mountain valleys. In the high passes, the wind howls like wolves. The men wrap themselves in furs, their breath freezing in midair. They march through blizzards, through avalanches, through landscapes so cold that metal shatters like glass. Many die, but the rest press on, driven by faith, fear, and the hypnotic certainty of Timur's command. By the time they emerge from the mountains into the plains of the Punjab, spring has come. The rivers glitter, the fields bloom, and the first villages of India lie before them. Small, peaceful, unaware, Timur halts his horse on a rise and looks out over the land. He can smell the warmth, the water, the promise of loot. "It is soft," he says quietly. "Soft lands make soft men." He draws his sword, its blade etched with prayers. "We will harden them." The order goes out. The first Indian villages vanish in smoke. The temples are stripped, the wells filled with corpses, the roads lined with prisoners bound in chains. Each new conquest feeds the army's appetite for the next. And at the front of it all, the man with the limp rides tirelessly, his eyes fixed always south, toward Delhi, the city whose riches are said to outshine the sun. Behind him, the snow melts. Ahead of him, the fields of Hindustan await, and if you listen closely, you can already hear the thunder, the hooves of 1,000 horses pounding toward the heart of India, toward a city that has no idea it is about to become a grave. The year is 1398, and the passes of the Hindu Kush lie frozen beneath a grey sky. Ice crusts the peaks like armour, and the valleys echo with the groan of wind and the creak of leather. Along the narrow trails, a serpent of men, horses and camels winds its way south. Timur's army, the most disciplined and merciless host the world has ever seen. You ride among them, boots buried in snow, the air so cold it bites through fur and steel alike. The men wrap scarves around their faces, their beards stiff with frost. Horses stumble and die by the dozen. The ones that live press on, their nostrils steaming, their hooves shattering ice. Somewhere ahead, through the white haze, you can just make out the silhouette of Timur himself, the iron wolf of Transoxiana, leaning slightly in the saddle to ease his injured leg, his gaze locked on the path ahead, as if he can already see the plains of India beyond the mountains. No one speaks. The sound of hooves and creaking saddles is the only music. Even the drums are silent here. There's no need to announce what death already knows. The soldiers know this march will be remembered. The Hindu Kush is not just a wall of stone, it is a test of will. The snow buries roads, avalanches devour whole caravans, and the cold freezes men where they stand. But this army does not stop. When a man falls, his comrades strip his gear and keep moving. When a horse collapses, they slit its belly, eat the steaming meat raw, and march again. At night, the campfires glow faintly against the dark cliffs, little stars in a black sea of cold. The tents snap in the wind. The mullahs move through the camp, chanting prayers, reminding the men that they march not only for gold, but for God, that every mile south brings them closer to jihad, to the land of the infidels, to paradise purchased through conquest. Timur listens from his tent, silent, thoughtful. To him, faith is both sword and shield, a weapon he wields with perfect calculation. He does not need his men to believe in him, only in his destiny. In the morning, they move again. The mountains part slowly, grudgingly, and the air begins to warm. Streams reappear, first as trickles, then as torrents. The snow turns to mud, the smell of thawing earth rises thick and pungent. For the first time in weeks, the soldiers hear birds. They descend through valleys lined with pine, and the army stretches wider now, a flood instead of a thread. Scouts ride ahead to locate passes and villages. Timur's mapmakers mark every trail, every ford, every mountain stream. Nothing escapes record. To conquer a land, he believes, you must first know its bones. They reach the outskirts of Kabul, where the local rulers come crawling in submission, offering gifts of horses, gold and slaves. Timur accepts their tribute with cold courtesy, then stations garrisons to hold the mountain roads behind him. No retreat, no chance for rebellion. The rear must be as silent as the dead. From Kabul, the army splits. One column takes the western road toward Multan, another the eastern toward Peshawar. Between them rides Timur with his elite guard, a black banner fluttering over his head. On its silk surface is stitched his personal emblem, 3 golden circles representing faith, power, and fate. The march turns brutal again as they enter the passes of the Khyber. The paths narrow to the width of a cart, and above them rise cliffs so high they seem to scrape the sky. Arrows rain down from hidden crags, ambushes by mountain tribes who know the land better than any invader. Timur's vanguard shields themselves, return fire, then scale the cliffs with terrifying speed. Within hours, every attacker is dead. The next day, Timur orders the tribe's villages burned. No survivors. Mercy is for the obedient, he says, his breath fogging the cold air. Defiance is its own grave. For 3 more weeks they march through rock and snow and blood. The sound of hammers on armour replaces prayer. The horses' ribs show through their hides. And yet, morale never breaks. The soldiers believe that those who die on this road will rise again in paradise, their names sung by angels and their loot multiplied 100-fold. One night, a storm blows in, the kind that erases the world. The snow falls so thick you can't tell sky from ground. Tents collapse, men freeze where they sleep. The wind screams like the souls of the dead. Timur, wrapped in wolf fur, stands outside his tent the entire night, his face turned into the storm. His commanders beg him to take shelter. He refuses. "If the mountains wish to stop me," he says, "let them do it to my face." By dawn, the storm has passed. Half the army is gone, frozen, buried, or lost. But the survivors rise, rebuild their fires, and march again. And then, finally, one morning they crest a ridge and see it, the plains of India. Endless fields of green stretch before them, dotted with rivers that gleam like silver threads under the sun. The men cheer, their breath steaming in the morning air. They have made it through hell. Timur sits silently on his horse, watching the horizon. He can smell the damp air, the richness of the soil, the faint sweetness of distant rain. The land below is alive, soft, fertile, ripe. He turns to his son, Miransha, and says quietly, "This land is too beautiful to belong to men so weak." Then he raises his arm and the trumpets sound. The army begins its descent. Tens of thousands of hooves pounding down the slopes, armour glinting, banners snapping. The wolves have come out of the mountains, and India does not yet know it is prey. The rivers of the Punjab await, the gates of Multan await, and far beyond them, the city of Delhi still sleeps, unaware that its nightmare has already begun. The plains unroll like a green carpet as Timur's army pours out of the mountains, hooves drumming a rhythm the earth has not heard in generations. Rivers shine like blades under the sun. Mango groves throw black shadows. The air smells of wet soil and smoke. Because behind the vanguard the fields already burn. Word races ahead of the invaders faster than riders. The one from Samarkand is coming. He eats cities. You reach the approaches to Multan, the great fortress of the upper Indus, its brick ramparts rising out of the heat like a red cliff. The city is old, older than any conqueror, and famous for saints' tombs, learning and stubbornness. From the battlements, the Sultanate garrison beats war drums and raises banners striped with green and white. Archers crowd the parapets. Muezzins call prayers that sound like pleas. Inside, markets shutter, wells are covered, and families huddle in courtyards where the dust vibrates with the distant thunder of hooves. Timur rides to a low ridge and studies the walls. The sun glints off his mail. His pale eyes don't blink. "Brick and prayer," he says to Miransha. "Let us see which is stronger." He signals. Engineers fan out like ants, measuring ground, pacing distances, sketching arcs for engines. Wagons creak forward bearing folded mangonels and Chinese-style traction trebuchets. Teams of smiths unpack iron fittings. Carpenters begin to sing through their teeth as saws bite wood. It looks less like an army than a moving workshop of destruction. Timur sends a herald with the ritual offer. Open the gates, pay, live. The answer flies back as an arrow that hums past the herald's cheek and thunks into the dust at Timur's horse's feet. A murmur moves through the ranks. A smile, thin and humorless, flickers under the Khan's beard. Good. he says. Their courage will save us work. Inside. The ring tightens. Cavalry screens slice the roads. Scouts seize ferries. Baggage is dragged into fortified camps. Prisoners from hill villages are driven forward with baskets and shovels to raise siege mounds. Each basket of dirt is a heartbeat closer. Drummers set a slow pulse. On the battlements, women wail and men shout verses to steel their hands. By noon, the first stones fly. Great, groaning throws, ropes whip, arms snap forward, boulders sail in lazy, murderous arcs and explode against Moulton's face. Brick shivers, dust blooms, defenders cheer when a mangonel arm splinters, and then fall silent when two more take its place. Beneath the walls, sappers crawl in trenches roofed with wet hides, dragging wicker mantlets and baskets of charcoal for smoke screens. Every few moments a Mongol horn looses a two-note cry, and archers step from cover to send black sleet skyward. Inside the city, courage holds for a day. On the second, fires leap along the bazaars. The enemy's firepots have started to land inside, bursting with pitch and oil. Roofs blossom into orange petals. Bucket lines form, children pass clay jars hand to hand, and the heat boils tears from faces whether anyone is crying or not. In the central mosque, imams lead invocations for deliverance. Men kiss thresholds and swear to die before they bend. A poet, half mad with smoke, scribbles 2 lines about the sun setting at noon. He has time to write a third before a tremor from a new impact shakes the ink across his sleeve. Timur moves the engines closer at dusk, using darkness and a sudden sand-laced wind to cover the advance. Mantlets creep like beetles. When dawn peels the night back, the mangonels stand so near that the defenders can see the crew's calloused hands. The third day becomes arithmetic. Stone versus brick. Wall crests unravel. A tower at the southeast corner leans like a drunk and then, with a groan felt in the soles, slides outward in a red avalanche. A cheer bursts from the besiegers, the kind of cheer that's half triumph, half relief that physics still works. The gap is not yet practicable. Timur orders storm ladders anyway. Test the heart, he says. Drums roll. Lines of shielded infantry rush. Ladders hit brick, and the air turns to needles as arrows hiss down. You taste iron on your tongue. Fear or blood, hard to tell. The first assault breaks, the second climbs higher, the third plants 2 standards before both are swallowed in a boiling melee, and the ladders topple backward, men cartwheeling in armour that sounds like dropped pans. Yes, gallows humour. If you don't laugh a little, you scream. Night. The camp hums. Sappers report a seam in the old brick where the wall joins a tower. Mortar here is crumbly, limestone weak. Timur's eyes brighten the way other men's do at music. Good, he says, give me fire. Barrels of naphtha and sheep fat are rolled to the trench. Bags of sulphur and saltpetre appear like magic because Timur's supply officers have the souls of accountants. Sappers feed a black mouth underground and set the mixture alight, then crawl back coughing. Above, the tower glows faintly as if embarrassed, then shudders. Before dawn it slumps, and a V-shaped bite appears in Multan's edge. Inside, the garrison's commander, a hard-faced Afghan with a scar across his lip, gathers his captains by lamplight. We sally at first call, he says, hit their engines, set fires, die well. No one laughs. Outside, the jackals do. The gates crack open in grey morning. A wedge of armoured men pours out screaming God's name. For a heartbeat shock, the Mongol screens step back. Then Subdivision 9 of Subbutai's School of Pain gets to work. Javelins bloom among the chargers like thorns. Horsemen split left and right, draw, and loose Parthian volleys that stitch through lamella like awls through leather. The sortie dies 20 paces from glory. Timur watches from his ridge, unreadable. Throw their bodies in the ditch, he says. They wish to fill it. We oblige. A white flag appears by mid-morning, small, wrinkled, hesitant. A cleric and 2 elders shuffle to the line, palms up. The cleric's voice shakes. Spare the city, we pay tenfold. We open granaries, we send hostages. Timur's reply is gentle, almost kind. I am merciful to obedience. But obedience comes before stone falls, not after. Open your gates, bring the keys, bow, and live. They return to the walls, and the answer from within is quarrels and curses. Hope dies loudest. On the 5th day, the breach yawns wide enough to swallow a street. The horns sound like a sea beast. In go the storm bands. Shields roofed, axes out. Fighting becomes a geometry of elbows, teeth, and knees. There is no poetry here, only breath and blade. You keep moving because the body behind pushes and the one before falls. Someone's sandal skids on a step slick with something you choose not to name. A boy on the parapet throws a stone, misses you, weeps, and is swept away by the tide. Multan breaks at noon. Once a wall is a doorway, a city is a basket of spilled grain. Timur's orders, no indiscriminate slaughter yet. First, silence resistance. Second, secure wells. Third, find treasuries, arsenals, granaries. Priorities, even in apocalypse, logistics is king. The citadel holds until sunset, then its gate smokes, splinters, and exhales men with their palms open. The Afghan commander is dragged before Timur, bleeding but upright. You were brave, Timur tells him, also unwise. The man spits blood and says, both are the same here. Timur inclines his head. Just so. He nods, and the guards lead the prisoner away. Mercy is rare coin. He spends none today. Then comes the sack. Organised, ledgered, relentless. Teams with wax tablets list populations by quarter. Captives are roped by trade. Smiths, masons, weavers, calligraphers, all marked for deportation to Samarkand. The rest are assessed as spoil. The measure of sorrow is bushels. Mosques are entered, their lamps taken for camp. Saintly shrines are stripped of silver filigree. The bazaar's locked chests cough up emeralds wrapped in oilcloth and coins stacked like little suns. Timur moves through it like an auditor of ruin, noting where marble can be pried from staircases without cracking. Careful, he says once, and 4 men lift a single lintel as if it were a sleeping child. By the second night, fires braid the alleys. Smoke writes black sentences against a copper moon. You can hear 3 sounds: the pop of timbers, the low hymn of prisoners, and from the citadel height, Timur's soft conversation with Miranshah. Delhi will hear this, he says. Multan is my letter. Fire is my ink. A pause, then the smallest smile. We will need more ink. Dark joke number 2, you're allowed 1 more before dawn. At dawn, drums call the army to form. Standards tilt toward the southeast. Behind them, Multan smoulders, stripped and stunned, its saints' tombs charred, its wells brackish with ash. Ahead lies the long road of flat earth and frightened rumour. Timur swings into the saddle. The gate to Hindustan, he says, glancing back at the ruin, is open. The column moves. Dust rises to meet it like a welcome. Villages ahead bar their doors, then throw them wide, then bar them again. Indecision is the only luxury left. And far down the Grand Trunk Road, beyond rivers that glitter like mirrors and fields trembling with winter wheat, 1 million souls in Delhi do not yet know that their world has already tilted. Multan fades behind you. The smell of smoke lingers in your hair. The taste of brick dust sits on your tongue. You ride on because the drums do, and the drums never stop. The smoke from Multan drifts like a dark rumour across the Punjab, carried by a wind that seems eager to tell bad news. It threads itself through mango groves and over mustard fields, slips into courtyards and caravanserais, and enters people's mouths, so that when they speak, their breath smells faintly of ash. Word runs ahead of a horse and drum. Timur has broken the river gate. Multan is fallen. The wolf is on the road. You travel south along the Grand Trunk Road, and the world you knew yesterday is already a stranger. Villages stand half empty, doors tied with cloth, cattle loose to fend for themselves. Wells are covered, fields trampled, shrines garlanded with hurried prayers. Every bend of the road has a watcher, a boy on a wall, a woman on a roof, an old man with a rosary, scanning the north as if a stare could halt an army. At the first market town, the bazaar no longer sings, it trembles. Money changers pack their scales. Jewellers sew gems into hems. Potters wrap their wheels in canvas like shrouds. A caravan from Lahore arrives with the speed of panic, camels lathered, men wild-eyed. Their news collides with rumour and multiplies. The fortress fell in 5 days. 3 days! No, in 1 night. They say his archers darken the sun. Someone points at the perfectly bright afternoon and shrugs. Logic is a luxury now. Along the road you pass the first trains of refugees, carts piled with bedding and copper pots, goats tied to axles, children blinking at a future too big for their faces. Men carry grindstones, women cradle ledgers, as if accounts will matter at the end of the world. They ask you the same questions again and again. How far? How many? Will Delhi protect us? You offer the only honest answer on the road. Keep moving. In Dipalpa, the governor holds a council that looks more like a quarrel wrapped in embroidery. Nobles blame each other for thin garrisons. Captains demand pay. Priests demand fasting. Merchants demand bridges left unburned. A young cavalry officer with dust still in his hair urges a ride north to harry Timur's scouts. Hit his forage parties, bleed his speed. The governor smooths his beard and chooses the safest tactic of all, postponement. By dusk, the officer is gone, having discovered the oldest military truth: courage outruns committees. Timur's vanguard does not wait for Dipalpa's minutes to be approved. They appear in fragments of dust on the horizon. 5 riders here, 10 riders there, and vanish before a trumpet can sound. A grain store catches fire after midnight. A bridge collapses at dawn with the neatness of design, not accident. Someone whispers the word Subutai, as if the very syllables could cut rope. No one has actually seen that famous mind at work in India, but the method feels familiar. Touch, test, withdraw, confuse the ground until it walks where you want it to. By the time you reach Panipat, the town breathes in shallow gulps. The carpenters are sawing spear shafts, the dyers are boiling cloth for bandages, the mosque courtyard overflows with vows. A grey-bearded Qadi addresses the crowd. Stand firm, for God is with the steadfast. A woman in the back mutters, God loves many things. Wolves are not always one of them. She's not wrong. History is in the habit of asking wolves to do more than they can. Caravans peel off the road toward Hisar and Thanesar, hoping side paths might outpace fate. Some lash their wagons into defensive circles at night. The old step trick learned from stories of other invaders. Irony is a patient teacher. By morning their circles are open again, because circles cannot march. The only formation that survives on the refugee road is a line. Long, ragged, pointed south. In the fields, farmers harvest early, cutting green wheat rather than risk none at all. Women smear doorposts with turmeric and lamp soot. Children tie red threads to banyan branches. The air is a web of small defences. You catch the scent of jaggery cooking hard on outdoor fires. Portable sugar is the one sweet argument that panic accepts. News arrives from Tulamba and Batna like stones thrown through windows. Tulamba opened its gates and was spared, which means the men were sorted, the craftsmen counted, the rest relocated to sorrow. Batna resisted and learned the algebra of siege the hard way. In both places lists were made. Timur believes in lists the way others believe in saints. The Delhi Sultanate feels the tremor at last. In the capital's palaces, mirrors catch the worry in noble faces. Sultan Nasiruddin Mahmud listens to counsel that swims in circles. One faction argues for a grand levy and battle on the plains, another for fortifying Delhi and letting hunger fight for them, a third for buying time with letters thickened by compliments and thin promises. The Sultan's hand shakes over each suggestion. He is not a coward. He's simply a man asked to become a mountain overnight. In the Maidan outside Delhi's walls, soldiers muster in heat that feels too bright for December. Banners rippling, elephants swaying, drummers rehearsing thunder. The army is impressive by any count. Cavalry in quilted armour, infantry with spears like a wheat field of iron, war elephants armoured in mail and bells. From the battlements, a child gasps. This looks like safety you can touch. But you have seen Multan and know that spectacle is not the same as method, and bells are not a tactic. Merchants in Delhi begin the quiet rituals of uncertainty. Silver is hidden in wall niches, A trunk of cloth of gold goes to a cousin in the country. A bride price is renegotiated with speed that would impress accountants and poets alike. In Nizamuddin's quarter, the poor lay out blankets for travellers and boil lentils for strangers. Small kindness against great weather. A Sufi at a doorway tells anyone who will listen, "Tie your camel, then trust in God." An instruction that sounds like a joke until the moment you need both ropes and prayer. Like joke count 1. Back on the road, panic grows new habits. Villagers begin leaving signs for those behind, chalk arrows to clean wells, saffron marks where ferries still cross, strings of shells on thorn branches to warn of dead ends. Even in flight, a country becomes a community of warnings. At a ruined toll house, someone has scratched with a nail. Do not stop to ask if it is safe. If it was safe, we would still be there at Sasawa. A band of young nobles attempts a raid on Timur's foragers. They ride out at dusk with confidence and perfume, return at dawn with silence and fewer shadows. The lesson follows them like a second tale. Timur doesn't leave meat on his tables or gaps in his nets. The first deserters from the Sultan's northern garrisons drift into Delhi like ash on wind. They have the odd steadiness of men who expected to be heroes and found mathematics instead. Their horse archers don't miss, one says. Their scouts are everywhere, says another. A third, staring at nothing, adds, they change direction without changing plan. It's the most frightening sentence you hear all week. Meanwhile, the skies themselves begin to play enemy. A dry wind lifts dust into curtains, visibility shrinks, messages travel slower. A rumour blooms that Timur carries the hot wind with him, a desert breath that dries wells ahead of his arrival. Science frowns at the story, thirst believes it. You reach Loni on the Yamuna's edge and feel time thicken. Here the road narrows between river and scrub, a natural choke, a place where armies must measure themselves. Delhi's forward camps pitch in ragged order, cooks pound spices and optimism into the rice, armourers hammer faith into loose plates. From the east bank, the city's domes glow like patient moons. From the west, dust boils on the horizon, in the particular colour that means cavalry. Delhi prays. Minarets and temple shikharas lift their separate hands to the same sky. The city that has laughed at 100 threats goes quiet at last, the way a stage hushes when the curtain begins to move. Children stop their games to listen to a sound they have never heard and yet recognise immediately. The long, low roll of hooves arriving in numbers that belong to mathematics, not to mercy. Night drops. Fires stripe the horizon in two bands. Delhi's camp to the south, Timur's to the north. Twin necklaces on the same throat. Somewhere between them, jackals debate loudly whether history counts as carrion. You lie down in your cloak and watch sparks climb the dark like prayers trying to remember the words. Sleep is a rumour. At dawn, bugles argue with drums. Elephants trumpet. The Yamuna holds its breath. Across the flats, black banners tilt and level, like scythes rehearsing. The men around you check straps, test bowstrings, murmur names. A thin boy next to you ties a strip of blue cloth to his wrist because his mother once told him blue cools fire. He looks at you and tries a smile. It's just a big raid, yes? You think of Multan's broken gate, of lists written on smoke, of the way fear learns to walk in step. You say the only kindness that isn't a lie. Keep close. And then the horizon moves. Timur is here. The river wind smells of mud and iron. Dawn glows faintly on the water as two worlds face each other across the Indus. Timur's disciplined horde on one side, the trembling army of the Delhi Sultanate on the other. It's December of 1398 CE, and the morning mist carries the sound of horses snorting, armour clinking, and prayers being whispered by men who know they might not finish them. You stand on Timur's side, high ground sloping down toward the ford. Behind you, an endless ocean of tents, black felt, striped silk, banners of every colour and curse. His army's not just large, it's organised, arranged like clockwork, each unit precisely placed. The vanguard under his son Miranshah, the left wing under Shah Rukh, the right under Pir Muhammad, and the centre, the heart, beneath Timur himself. He sits astride a grey horse armoured in scale plates, his own face half hidden by a veil of chain. He looks less like a man than a sculpture of patience. In his hands he holds the reins lightly, as if the beast beneath him is only another thought he's controlling. Across the river the Sultan's army gathers, larger by numbers, smaller by everything else. The Delhi forces look magnificent but chaotic. Elephants draped in gold and bells, infantry packed shoulder to shoulder, cavalry glittering but undisciplined. Their banners bear verses from the Quran, prayers for victory and talismans against evil. The soldiers believe God will protect them because their enemy is also Muslim, and surely heaven would not bless brother killing brother. You could tell them that heaven's silence is louder than any drum. Timur studies them through a spyglass made of polished horn. Too many banners, he says quietly. A commander who fears to be unseen. His aide, a scribe named Mahmud al-Kashi, records every word. Timur knows that history is written not only by victors, but by those who narrate themselves. When the mist lifts, horns sound from both sides, long, low, and mournful. The river gleams pale gold under the morning sun. For a moment, both armies stand motionless, as if the world itself is holding its breath. Then the Mongol trumpets blare. From Timur's flank, the cavalry surges forward in a crescent formation, hooves thundering, arrows already in the air before the enemy even realizes what's happening. Their arrows fly in dark clouds, each whistling like a curse. Across the river, men fall before they can raise their shields. The Sultan's elephants roar, shaking the ground. Their mahouts prod them toward the fords, and the beasts plunge into the Indus, their armour gleaming, water churning white around their tusks. Behind them, infantry and cavalry follow, shouting, "Allahu Akbar!" The sound echoes like thunder, defiant, desperate. Timur does not flinch. He raises his hand, palm outward, the signal for patience. The Mongols fall back deliberately, drawing the Sultan's forces deeper into the shallows. The river becomes chaos. Horses stumble, elephants trumpet, arrows rain down from the far bank like divine punishment. When the Sultan's front line finally drags itself onto dry ground, it meets a wall of fire. Timur's engineers, waiting on the slope, ignite barrels of naphtha and pitch. Flames leap up, roaring and devouring oxygen. Smoke billows across the field, turning sunlight into dusk. The elephants panic, their ears crackling with heat. They wheel and charge back toward their own lines, trampling men underfoot. The Sultan's command disintegrates. Orders vanish in the din. Drummers are drowned in the crush of their own ranks. What began as a glorious army collapses into noise and confusion. Timur watches calmly from the ridge, his fingers tapping the saddle horn. "Now," he says. 1,000 horns answer. From the flanks, Mongol cavalry sweeps down in perfect synchronization. One wing striking the Sultan's right, the other cutting behind the retreating elephants. Their bows hum, their sabres flash. The centre advances next. Heavy cavalry with long spears, their horses protected by quilted armour. The Sultan's soldiers fight bravely, but bravery without discipline is only a slow death. They charge where they should hold where they should flee. The air fills with screams, shouts, and the deep rumble of collapsing faith. Timur's tactics unfold like a game he's played 1,000 times. Bait, encircle, suffocate. He does not chase the strongest. He crushes the weak links first, widening the cracks until the army splits apart. When the Sultan's left wing falters, Timur rides into the gap himself, sword drawn, shouting commands that cut sharper than the blade in his hand. His limp doesn't slow him. His presence turns fear into precision. He calls to his men. They fight for their lives. We fight for history. Behind him, drums roll like thunder. The Mongols tighten their circle. From above, it looks almost graceful, a spiral of motion closing on a single trembling heart. By noon, the river runs red. The Sultan's banners are down, trampled into mud. War elephants lie on their sides, their gilded armour blackened with soot. The survivors flee south, tossing their weapons aside to run faster. Timur lets them go for a time, not out of mercy, but calculation. A frightened enemy spreads terror better than any trumpet. When the sun dips westward, the field is quiet except for the hiss of cooling fires. The air smells of blood, pitch and smoke. Vultures circle, Timur dismounts, removes his gauntlet, and dips his fingers into the river. The water runs pink. He looks at his son Shah Rukh and says, "This river now remembers me." That night his army camps on the far bank, the fires stretching for miles. The men feast on captured grain and roasted lamb. The loot from the Sultan's supply trains fills the air with the jingle of gold. Musicians play soft, eerie tunes. Victory has its own rhythm. Timur walks among his soldiers, nodding silently. He stops at a group of archers and asks, "What do you see ahead?" One replies, "Delhi, my lord, the city of kings." Timur smiles faintly. "No, the city of fools who built walls instead of order." He returns to his tent and dictates a proclamation for the scribes. "The God of the faithful has granted me triumph over the corrupt and the proud. I march to purify their capital." In the distance, lightning flickers above the horizon, silent, white, the same colour as bone. And somewhere beyond that glow, the towers of Delhi stand unaware that the storm has already crossed the Reeve. The Indus lies behind you now, a sluggish red mirror of defeat. Ahead stretches the wide, open plain of the Punjab, fertile land turned to ruin, mile by mile beneath the hooves of Timur's army. What was once the granary of Hindustan has become a furnace. Smoke stalks the horizon. Even the crows seem hoarse from screaming. You ride at the edge of the column, dust thick in your throat. The army moves like a slow machine, deliberate, unstoppable. Ahead march the scouts, their horses lean and tireless. Behind them, ranks of armoured cavalry, their faces wrapped in black silk to keep out both sun and smell. At the rear, wagons creak beneath the weight of plunder, gold vessels, silks, spices, chained prisoners. Every wheel turn seems to grind a city into powder. Villages appear, vanish, and reappear only as cinders. The army leaves nothing behind, not food, not water, not witnesses. Timur's orders are written in precision. Take what is useful, burn what resists, move on. At Tulamba, the elders meet the army outside their gates, barefoot, carrying Qurans above their heads. They bring silver, horses and tears, begging for mercy. Timur listens, nods, and accepts their gifts. For 2 days his troops camp peacefully beyond the walls. Traders even reopen their stalls, thinking perhaps this conqueror is not like others. On the third morning a rumour spreads. Someone inside Tulamba mocked Timur's crippled leg. Whether true or not, it doesn't matter. Orders pass quietly. No more mercy. The gates burn before noon. By sunset, the city is gone. The only survivors are the dogs, wandering days through the ashes, their paws blackened. You stop counting corpses after the first 100. They hang from trees, lie stacked in irrigation ditches, float in the canals meant to feed wheat and sugarcane. The flies are so thick they look like smoke. The army doesn't bury its dead or its victims, it doesn't have to. The crows and the jackals handle logistics. At night the fires light the road for miles. Men sleep beside loot, swords across their knees. Prisoners huddle in ropes, their eyes wide, their silence louder than screams. Sometimes you hear a baby crying somewhere deep in the baggage train, one of the spoils of Multan or Tulamba, life stolen and carried forward like a relic. Timur rides among the fires, inspecting everything, his limp measured and deliberate. His presence freezes laughter, stiffens spines. He rarely speaks, but when he does, every word lands like a decree. One night he calls his captains together. They said the road from Samarkand to Delhi was long, he tells them. I say it is short, if it is paved with obedience. He gestures toward the smoke rising from Tulamba. Obedience, he says again, and fear. South of Tulamba lies Patna, a fortress town on the edge of the desert, ruled by a Rajput chief loyal to the Delhi Sultan. Its walls are thick, its defenders proud. Timur sends a messenger offering peace in exchange for surrender and tribute. The Rajput sends back a single arrow wrapped in red cloth, a silent refusal. Timur laughs, a dry, humourless sound. Good, he says, it will give the road variety. The siege begins at dawn. Catapults thud rhythmically. Arrows hum like hornets. The defenders fight fiercely, raining boiling oil and stones from the battlements. For 4 days the Mongols assault the walls, each wave leaving piles of their own dead beneath the parapets. On the 5th, Timur orders the engineers to dig mines beneath the main gate. They pack them with timber and oil-soaked cloth, set them aflame, and step back. The explosion sounds like the mountain itself cracking. The gate bursts outward, a red storm of flame and dust. The Mongols charge through the breach screaming, "Allahu Akbar!" Inside, it is slaughter without shape. The Rajput chief fights to the last, sword flashing, beard soaked with blood. When he falls, Timur orders his body lifted high on a spear for all to see. "Let Delhi watch through its servants," he says. By nightfall, the streets of Patna run with molten light, fire reflected in pools of blood. The survivors, mostly women and children, are bound and added to the train. Timur's scribes keep meticulous notes: number of captives, quantity of gold, number of enemies slain. Everything is catalogued, as if accounting can civilize horror. From that day, people call the road south the Road of Corpses. Every mile bears a marker: the blackened stump of a village, the bones of oxen, the skeleton of a burned cart. The Mongols ride between them as if travelling through a gallery of warnings. Timur calls it discipline through example. In the town of Sirsa, a few surviving peasants bring their children out to the roadside, kneeling as the army passes. One boy dares to lift his head. Timur reins in his horse, looks down and asks, "What is your name?" The boy stammers, "Arjun, Lord." "Arjun?" Timur repeats softly. "Remember this day." The world changes only when fear teaches it how he rides on. Behind him, his men leave a small bag of grain by the boy's feet, the only kindness of the march. By now, the landscape itself seems to recoil. The wells turn foul, the grass dies, the birds vanish. Refugees from Punjab flood the roads toward Delhi, carrying with them stories that twist with every telling, of rivers turned to blood, of ghosts on horseback, of a one-legged king who commands the wind. In Panipat, the governor locks the gates, swearing loyalty to Delhi but secretly praying Timur will pass him by. Timur doesn't bother with sieges anymore. His scouts report that the Sultan's army is gathering near Loni, and he is eager to end this campaign quickly. Still, the road demands ritual. Before leaving Punjab, Timur halts his army for 3 days. On the plain outside Panipat, he orders every captured soldier, every male prisoner, every surviving rebel, more than 100,000 soul, to be executed. His generals hesitate. "Majesty," one of them says, "these captives are harmless." They cannot fight. Timur's gaze hardens. "A soldier who eats my bread should not feed my enemy tomorrow." The order is carried out with the efficiency of habit. The captives are divided into ranks, each bound together. The executioners move methodically, swords rising and falling until the earth itself seems to exhale. When it's over, the plain is silent, except for the buzz of flies beginning their work. That night, Timur writes to his chroniclers, "Today, by God's will, I have lightened the burden of our march and purified the way to Delhi." You can almost imagine him smiling faintly as he dips his quill into the same ink he uses for blood. When dawn breaks, the army moves again, south, always south, the road behind them glittering with frost and bones, and somewhere far ahead, beyond the haze of smoke and fear, the great domes of Delhi shimmer faintly under the winter sun, unaware that they are about to witness the end of their own world. The winter sun rises pale over Delhi, catching the marble domes and gilded spires so that the whole city glows like a mirage. Beautiful, fragile, almost not real. But step inside the gates, and you feel the tension crackle like dry silk. Every street hums with rumour. The air itself seems to listen. You wander through the Chandni Chowk, and it's not the bazaar you remember. The perfume sellers are gone, their stalls boarded up. The jewellers' windows are shuttered. The moneylenders' courtyards smell of smoke. People have been burning their account books to hide what they own. The city's rich quarters, once noisy with gossip and music, have turned inward. Silk curtains drawn, lamps unlit, laughter strangled. Even the mosques sound different. The prayers are louder now, faster, trembling. Men pray not for heaven, but for safety. In the alleys around the Jama Masjid, Beggars press closer to the walls, whispering stories of the conqueror who walks with a limp and burned cities behind him. Above all this, the palace looms, the citadel of Siri, built by Alauddin Khalji, now seat of the Tughlaq Sultanate. But the grandeur is peeling. The white plaster is cracked, the mosaics fading, and the royal elephants look thin, their harnesses patched. Within those walls, the empire's heart beats irregularly, fast, frightened, and unsure. Sultan Nasiruddin Mahmud Tughlaq paces his audience hall, trying to look calm while the court unravels around him. The floor is marble, but the throne he sits on feels like sand. Around him cluster the viziers, generals and astrologers, each one whispering advice, each one terrified of being noticed. "The infidel Timur comes to plunder, Majesty," says one minister. "Offer him gold and passage. Let him march south to Gujarat." Another snorts. "Offer him gold? He will take the mint." A third, older and sadder, murmurs, "Perhaps this is God's punishment. We have ruled unjustly too long." At that, the Sultan slams his fist on the throne arm. "Enough! You speak of punishment. I speak of war. Delhi has faced Mongols before. They broke against our walls like waves. The viziers exchange glances. None dare remind him that those Mongols were generations ago, when Delhi was younger, richer, stronger. Outside the palace, the army drills on the Maidan, the great open field south of the city. It is a dazzling sight. 10,000 horsemen in armour of silver and red, infantry with spears like a forest, and elephants covered in plates of iron, their tusks capped with blades. The people climb the walls to watch, their fear mixing with pride. Maybe, they think, maybe Delhi will hold. But you can see the cracks even here. The soldiers' armour doesn't fit, some helmets are borrowed, others missing. The elephants move uneasily. They've smelled blood in the air, and beasts always know before men do. The officers shout commands, but half the troops are mercenaries, their loyalty tied to coin, not country. As the sun sets, Delhi's sky turns copper red, the colour of omen. Muezzins call the Maghrib prayer, temple bells ring, conch shells blow. For a moment, the city's many faiths breathe together, as if pleading in harmony, and far beyond the northern horizon, faint as thunder, comes the sound of hooves. The first refugees arrive that night. Farmers, merchants, soldiers, barefoot, starving, their faces caked in ash. They bring stories from the north that sound like nightmares made real. "They burned Batna," one man gasps. "Every man, woman and child," another adds. "They built towers of skulls." 10,000 in one day, says a third, and collapses where he stands. Delhi's people listen in silence. Some weep. Others simply turn and start walking, out through the southern gates, into the dark, anywhere away from what's coming. Inside the city, the preparations take on a frantic rhythm. Walls are patched with mud and brick. Archers test their bows on the ramparts. Wells are sealed, granaries locked. The palace kitchens store grain in empty treasure chests. The Sultan's goldsmiths melt coins into bars for quick transport, not tribute, but escape. Even the holy men sense what's coming. In the Khanqa of Nizamuddin Awliya, the Sufi dervishes pray through the night. Their leader, an old man with a voice like sandpaper, tells his disciples, "We built this city on arrogance. Perhaps fire will remind us we are dust." A few brave poets keep writing, as poets always do. One records the rumours as verse. The north glows red, the wind tastes of ash, and every hoofbeat writes a verse of fear. By the third night, the glow on the horizon is visible from the minarets. The watchmen call it aurora, but everyone knows it's fire. Timur's army is close. The Sultan gathers his generals in the war room, men of silk and steel, each terrified in his own way. They unroll maps, scatter tokens to represent divisions, argue about formations. "The enemy crosses the Yamuna tomorrow," says one scout. They march in silence, but their banners blot the horizon. The Sultan clenches his jaw. "Then we will meet them at Loni. God will decide." That night Delhi barely sleeps. Drums beat along the walls, elephants trumpet in the stables, and prayers echo through every alley. In the poorer quarters, families bury what little wealth they have beneath the floors, mark the spots with small chalk crosses, and whisper, "If God spares us, we'll dig it up again." In the courtyards of mosques, fires burn in braziers, not for warmth, but for courage. Scribes sharpen pens to record the miracle they still hope will come. From the palace roof, the Sultan looks north and sees it. A red line stretching across the horizon, flickering and shifting like a living thing. The torches of Timur's vanguard. The Sultan's lips move silently. A prayer, a curse, maybe both. Behind him, his vizier murmurs, "Majesty, they say the conqueror prays before battle." The Sultan's voice is flat. "Then let him pray. He will need it." But his hand trembles on the parapet. By dawn, the smoke of Timur's fires mixes with Delhi's own incense. 2 suns rise that morning, one golden, one red. The people of the city kneel to the first and fear the second. Somewhere in the haze between them, history sharpens its blade. At first, it is only a tremor, faint, distant, almost imagined, the sound of hooves far beyond the horizon. But by the time the sun climbs above the domes of Delhi, the tremor has grown into thunder. Windows rattle, pigeons burst from rooftops in sudden white clouds. The wind smells of dust, smoke, and iron. The horde is coming. From the northern plain, a brown haze crawls toward the city like a living fog. Beneath it, the ground itself seems to move. Horses, thousands upon thousands, rolling forward in perfect rhythm. Behind them, banners of black and red whip through the wind, embroidered with verses in gold. "By the sword we serve the eternal." You stand upon Delhi's northern wall, and the horizon is no longer sky and earth but movement and shadow. The Mongols are so many that you cannot see where they end. They march in silence, no shouting, no chaos, only order. It's terrifying. The kind of order that has buried nations. Beside you, archers adjust their strings. Some mutter prayers, some kiss amulets. One man stares too long and whispers, "They look like ants." Another replies, "Ants don't bring fire." At the citadel of Siri, Sultan Nasir-ud-Din Mahmud watches from his tower. His armour gleams, but his face does not. Around him, the court stands silent. No poets, no jesters now. Only ministers, generals, and fear. From the walls you can see the Yamuna River shimmer faintly between the 2 armies. Beyond it, Timur's camp blooms like a city of black tents, banners rising in precise rows. The smell of pitch and horse dung drifts on the wind. The Sultan's generals try to sound brave. "They are far from home," says one. "They'll tire before Delhi." Another smirks. "And where will they find food?" The plains are empty, scorched by their own march. But the Sultan isn't listening. His gaze lingers on the horizon. He's seen too many messages arrive written in panic and blood. "They will not tire," he says softly. "They have nowhere to go but forward." That afternoon the scouts return, pale and trembling. "Majesty," one gasps, "they are already across the Yamuna. They built a bridge of boats in one night." The court erupts in shouts. "Impossible! A lie! Witchcraft!" The Sultan raises his hand. Silence falls. "Prepare the army," he says simply. "We meet them at Loni." The order spreads through the city like fire through dry grass. Bells ring, drums echo. From every quarter of Delhi, soldiers pour into the streets. Cavalry, archers, footmen, war elephants with their tusks capped in steel. The ground shakes as they march toward the northern plain. Behind them, trail cooks, grooms, water bearers, and thousands of curious onlookers who still believe this will be a show of glory, not a reckoning. The citizens gather along the ramparts to watch the army pass. Mothers lift their children to wave. Old men bow their heads. Women toss flowers from balconies, jasmine, marigold, and rose, the same petals they will later scatter on graves. As the army leaves through the northern gate, a Sufi standing by the road calls out, "Tie your faith to your deeds, not your prayers." The soldiers laugh uneasily. Outside the walls, the plain stretches wide and flat, a perfect killing ground. The Delhi army takes position in the fields between Loni and the river. The Sultan rides among them, his turban bound with a single sapphire, his white horse restless beneath him. From the far side, Timur's vanguard appears. Lines upon lines of horsemen, their armour dull, their faces veiled. At their head rides Timur himself. His limp is visible now, but it seems to make him more menacing, not less. He rides with slow, deliberate grace, as if every step of his horse measures destiny. Between the two armies lies the Yamuna's fog, thick and pale, curling like smoke from unseen fire. Timur halts his army at a distance, then he raises his hand. A messenger gallops forward under a white flag, the old ritual. He bows before the Sultan and shouts across the no man's land, "Timur, servant of the Eternal, conqueror of empires, bids the Sultan of Delhi submit. Pay tribute, open your gates, and your city shall be spared." The Sultan's reply is a cold smile. "Tell him," he says, "that Delhi bows to none. If he wants my crown, he can come take it." The messenger bows again. He will. He turns and rides back through the fog, the hooves muffled, the silence louder than sound. Then Timur gives the simplest order he ever speaks. Advance. The Mongol lines ripple forward. You can hear it before you see it. The beat of hooves, steady and rhythmic. Drums join, deep and hollow, like the heartbeat of the earth. From a distance, the army seems to move as one vast creature, breathing, pulsing, unstoppable. The Delhi army responds with its own roar, elephants trumpeting, drums pounding, men shouting, "Allahu Akbar," until their voices crack. The earth vibrates. Timur's siege engines are rolled forward, each wrapped in hides soaked with water to resist fire. Archers climb the wooden towers, knocking arrows black with pitch. Then with a flick of his hand, Timur unleashes the sky. Flaming arrows rise, curving like comets. They fall upon the Delhi lines, bursting among the elephants and infantry. The beasts panic, their trunks flailing, their bell bells clanging wildly. The Sultan's cavalry tries to steady them, but fear spreads faster than commands. The Mongol cavalry rides in from both flanks, fast, silent, deadly. Their arrows whistle in perfect rhythm, cutting men down before they can lift their shields. The Delhi soldiers fight bravely, but their formation breaks like glass under pressure. The Sultan's generals scream orders. Drums beat, but the fog thickens. Confusion reigns. No one can see more than a few paces. The elephants, maddened by fire, turn and crash into their own lines. From his hilltop, Timur watches calmly, eyes half closed. "The walls of Delhi are not of stone," he says softly. "They are of men. Break the men, and the walls will fall on their own." By evening the plain is chaos, smoke, screams, dust. The Sultan's army reels backward, retreating toward the city gates. Timur holds his ground, letting exhaustion and terror finish what swords began. When the sun sets, the fog glows red. The Yamuna runs dark and thick. The Sultan returns to the city under cover of night, silent, his armour dented, his face grey. Delhi's gates close behind him, with a groan that sounds too much like mourning. Outside, Timur camps beneath the stars, his tents arrayed in perfect order. The fires burn steady, the banners still. He doesn't need victory songs. The silence of the defeated is music enough. From the walls of Delhi, the people watch those fires flicker, neat lines stretching to the horizon, like a second city born in flame. The horde has arrived, and Delhi can feel it breathing. The winter sun rises over the plains of Loni, thin and pale as old gold. The air hangs heavy, the sky low, and the ground still slick with the blood of yesterday's skirmishes. You stand among the Sultan's troops, waiting. The wind carries the faint smell of horses, pitch, and something metallic, the scent of iron and inevitability. Across the open field, Timur's army stands ready, lines perfect, banners snapping like black wings. From a distance they look less like men and more like geometry, precision given flesh. Their campfires still smoulder behind them, faint trails of smoke twisting upward, marking the horizon like scars. Behind you rises the gleaming silhouette of Delhi, its domes and spires catching the morning light. The city looks magnificent, eternal, almost untouchable. But even from here, you can sense its pulse, a trembling heart under armour. The Sultan's army stretches wide across the plain, elephants armoured in steel and silk, cavalry in layered mail, infantry holding long spears and shields of leather. The drummers beat slow, steady rhythms that try to imitate confidence. The Sultan himself sits astride a white horse beneath a banner of emerald green. The Quran verses on it glittering like prophecy. He looks magnificent, but tired. He hasn't slept since the night before, pacing the ramparts while the city's imams prayed, and the women lit lamps in their courtyards. And now, on this cold morning of December 17th, 1398, everything will be decided. The plain between Loni and Delhi is flat as a blade. It's perfect for cavalry, terrible for retreat. Both armies know it. Timur rides forward alone, stopping within earshot of the Sultan's vanguard. His limp is visible, his armour dark and unadorned, his expression calm. For a long moment, he simply looks at the elephants, at the glittering armour, at the mass of men waiting to die for a crown already trembling. Then, in a low voice, he says to his scribe, "Write this. I came to Delhi not to conquer, but to cleanse." His right hand lifts. The horns blow, a deep low note that feels more like a vibration in your ribs than a sound in your ears. The Mongol cavalry moves first, pouring out like a tide, hooves pounding the frozen ground in waves. From the flanks, thousands of archers release in perfect unison, black arrows blotting out the light, falling like a storm of insects. They strike the Sultan's front lines and men drop as if the air itself turned to knives. The Delhi soldiers shout, raise their shields and answer with their own arrows. But the range is wrong, the angle too steep. The Mongols ride too fast, too wide. Then come the elephants, massive, unstoppable, their tusks tipped with steel, their backs bristling with archers and banners. The ground quakes beneath their steps. They charge with a sound that isn't quite a roar, isn't quite thunder, it's both. Dust erupts in their wake. Timur watches them approach. "Now," he says. From behind his lines, engineers roll forward barrels wrapped in leather and rope, filled with oil, pitch and sulphur. They light the fuses, push them downhill. The barrels roll toward the elephants like slow, fiery comets. When they burst, the plain erupts in flame. The elephants scream, high, shrill human sounds. They rear and thrash, their riders thrown into the fire. Some charge forward through the blaze. Others wheel around, blind and panicked, crashing into the Sultan's own infantry. The Delhi formation dissolves instantly. The neat ranks turn into chaos. Soldiers crushed under elephants, horses bolting, commanders shouting orders no one can hear. Timur's cavalry surges in, fast and ruthless. They ride in wedges, slicing into the broken lines. Their sabres flash in the haze. Their discipline is terrifying. Each move practiced, mechanical, perfect. The Sultan's archers fire desperately, but the smoke blinds them. They hit more of their own men than the enemy. You can barely breathe. The air thick with dust and the acrid bite of burning oil. The cries of the dying mix with the thunder of hooves, the roar of fire, the clash of steel. Somewhere in the chaos, the Sultan's banner wavers, then falls. For a heartbeat, the field pauses. Then panic spreads. The Delhi army breaks. Men throw down their weapons and run for the river. Others drop to their knees, begging for mercy no one has time to give. Timur's soldiers do not chase. They move methodically, killing with efficiency, not rage. You see Timur himself ride into the field, calm amid the whirlwind. He doesn't shout or swing his sword wildly. He points, here, there, each gesture sealing another pocket of resistance's fate. He moves like someone conducting a grim symphony. By midday it's over. The plain that shimmered with armour now glitters only with corpses. The elephants lie scattered, their gold trappings dull with soot. The banners of Delhi, green, red and blue, lie trampled in the mud. The Sultan's army has ceased to exist. Timur dismounts beside a shallow stream. He kneels, rinses the blood from his gloves and says to his son Miransha, "This is not victory, this is correction." Miransha nods, though his face looks sick. Even he, Timur's own blood, cannot watch this calmly. The prisoners are gathered, a few hundred dazed survivors dragged into lines. Timur looks at them, then turns away. "Send them home," he says. "Let them tell their city what they saw." That night, Delhi sees what fear truly looks like. The survivors stumble through the gates, men half-burned, armour-dented, eyes hollow. Behind them, the sound of the Mongol drums rolls across the plain, steady, slow, like a heartbeat that refuses to stop. In the Siri palace, the Sultan collapses onto his throne, armour still on. "What did they see?" he whispers. No one answers. The silence is answer enough. Timur's army camps just outside Delhi's walls. They make no noise, no war cries, just lines of torches glowing through the night, perfectly even, perfectly still. Inside the city, no one sleeps. The mosques are full, the temples too. Mothers hush their children, whispering that the walls will hold. Fathers sharpen knives knowing they won't. From the northern ramparts, you can see Timur's camp glowing like an inverted constellation. The stars of hell, perfectly arranged. A few soldiers on watch swear they can hear laughter drifting from the enemy lines, and not mocking laughter, but the calm, quiet kind of men who know they've already won. And over all of it, like the whisper of smoke, rides the wind, carrying the words Timur spoke before the battle: "I came not to conquer, but to cleanse." Now Delhi waits to learn what that means. Morning creeps over Delhi like a cautious thief, peering over domes and parapets as if afraid of what it will see. Smoke from the battlefield still threads the air. The city smells of ash and old prayers. You stand on the northern rampart and watch the enemy camp uncoil with terrifying calm. No shouting, no clatter beyond what discipline allows. Far below, the Yamuna runs dull pewter, as if it too is trying not to reflect what's about to happen. Inside the walls, a last illusion clings like dew. Merchants unlock chests to move their remaining silver. Scribes sharpen pens to record a miracle that hasn't RSVP'd. Soldiers straighten dented helms and try to remember which knot keeps courage from coming loose. In the Siri palace, the Sultan sits rigid on his throne, the emerald banner at his back suddenly looking small, like a bookmark in a book the author has abandoned. Around him, ministers advise suitably heroic verbs: endure, resist, persevere. None of those verbs sharpen a sword. Then the drums begin, not frantic, not triumphant, just steady. From the plain, Timur's engines roll forward, siege towers with hide-swathed flanks, mangonels creaking like old trees in a storm, great ladders carried by ranks of men whose faces are wrapped to keep out smoke and doubt. A white flag appears briefly at the gatehouse, not surrender, just panic in linen. It vanishes when an officer snaps, "Hold your posts!" He says it like a man trying to staple the wind. The first stones strike the northern gate, each impact a sermon in physics. Timber booms, iron whining in protest. Arrows drift both ways, a black pollen thickening the air. On the parapet near you, an archer mutters, "If I survive this, I'm opening a bakery." Another replies, "Open too. One for me." Gallows humour quota, 1/3. Timur doesn't waste men against strong points. He aims for seams, the join where old masonry kisses new, the spot the last flood softened, the tower whose foundation rats have diagrammed. Sappers scrabble forward under wet hides, pushing wicker mantelets, hauling baskets of sand to smother oil. Above them, Delhi's defenders pour boiling water, tip stones, and chant verses whose rhythms started wars and ended famines. But stone only understands leverage. By noon, a section of wall slouches. The mangonels change their tempo, hurling shorter, heavier shots. The third boulder lands a little left of the last, the fourth lands lower, the fifth kisses the same wound until the structure forgets its job. With a sound like a cathedral sighing, the bastion surrenders to gravity. Dust leaps skyward. Men topple as if yanked by invisible rope. A hole opens where confidence used to be. The horns call, and the storm bands go in, shields shouldered, axes out, faces expressionless in the way of men who made peace with their god yesterday. They move with method, not fury. You expect a roar and get a hum, the sound of steps in time. The first wave hits the breach and vanishes into the grey churn. The second follows without breaking stride. The third carries fascines to level the tumble of brick. Delhi's defenders rush to plug the gap, spears bristling, eyes wide, and the fighting collapses into inches. There's no line now, just friction. Elbow, shield rim, breath. Someone near you is reciting the Fatiha between thrusts like a metronome for survival. The Sultan rides from the palace toward the breach with his bodyguard and a courage that would have been more useful yesterday. His horse skids to a stop at the edge of the dust. He raises his sword and shouts something noble that the wind edits into a ragged vowel. His guards press forward, and for a heartbeat the tide checks. Then the Mongol reserve, which has been waiting like a closed fist, opens, a dark wedge sliding into the seam. The Sultan's banner lists, writes itself, then retreats toward the palace with the wounded dignity of a pageant float in a hailstorm. On the walls, a shout, "To the southern gate!" Panic travels faster than orders. Civilians flood the alleys, lugging bundles of copper pots, bedding, a grandmother who swears she can walk if people would stop fussing. A moneylender bolts his door, then unbolts it because doors don't stop fire. He hides his ledger in a bread oven and immediately forgets which oven. Like joke, 2/3. By mid-afternoon, Timur's men have split the city into quarters like a butcher who knows bone. They plant standards at cross streets, post archers on minarets, and send runners to check wells and granaries. This is not frenzy, it's inventory. The first places secured are the water sources, the mint and the gates. The second are the great houses with courtyards big enough to stage the real business, counting and sorting. Artisans are gathered under guards who call trades like a market crier. Smiths, masons, weavers, leatherworkers, calligraphers. Children cling to shawls, lists unfurl. A scribe dips his reed pen with the care of a surgeon. Yes, even ruin needs neat handwriting. Looting begins, but even that has rules. Units are assigned lanes and time windows. Captains carry wax tablets to log spoils. Mosques and shrines are entered, lamps and brass are lifted, Qurans are set aside, not out of tenderness, out of policy. Books can travel. In the palace, treasuries yield a glitter that makes men forget they are tired. Coin heaps gleam like domesticated suns. Timur walks through the hall with a staff tapping chests. This to the wagons, this to the smiths, this to Samarkand. You half expect him to rearrange the furniture. He almost does. Resistance flickers and dies. In a lane by the Karibaoli, a pocket of guards fights from rooftops, dropping tiles and curses. A mangonel crew lobs a single stone that atomizes the argument. Near the Jama Masjid, young nobles attempt a charge that looks excellent for 3 seconds and then meets veterans who have seen every 3 seconds in history. By sunset, the city's noise changes key, from clash to clamour, from defence to aftermath. Timur enters the Grand Mosque at dusk. He removes his boots, steps onto cool marble and prays, a posture that will read as piety in chronicles and as theatre to those who watched him schedule it. When he stands, he addresses the gathered imams. Corruption invited fire, God permitted me to be the flame. His voice is even, almost tired, like a magistrate who has signed too many warrants. The imams bow, some in terror, some in the kind of agreement that keeps you alive. Night falls, and the city glows from 1,000 points. Cook fires, signal flares, houses taken by sparks that did not ask permission. From the palace roof, the Sultan looks over what was his. He has a choice: stay and play at being a prisoner with a crown, or flee and attempt the arithmetic of regrouping. He chooses the second and slips from a postern with a few escorts, leaving behind a throne that feels warmer without him. In the captured mint, coin dies strike new impressions. Not the Sultan's names, but Timur's mottos, test pieces for a future he may not even want, only want to prove he can command. In the granaries, guards doling measured rations to their own men are stricter than accountants. In the alleys, mothers barter bangles for water. A potter sits in the doorway of his shattered kiln and says to no one, "Clay remembers hands." Like joke 3 out of 3. You almost tell him you'll need a very big vase for this memory. Close to midnight, a hush floats over the Registan-like square before the mosque. A line of prisoners kneels. Behind them, the scribes finish their columns. No blades rise yet. That command belongs to tomorrow. But the city understands that tonight's quiet is simply breath drawn before a long sentence is spoken. You walk the edge of the square and feel the stones warmer than the air. The wind brings the mingled smells of ghee, smoke, sweat, and the faint iron tang that never fully leaves battlefields. Above, the stars look absurdly clean. Somewhere near the mint, a soldier counts emeralds out loud like a child learning numbers. Somewhere near the river, a boatman pries up a plank to hide a pouch of coins he will never see again. Somewhere in the palace, a chamberlain carefully folds the emerald banner and places it in a chest because ceremony deserves witnesses, even if the witness is a moth. By dawn, the conqueror will issue his fuller judgment. For now, Delhi has fallen not with a single crash, but with a practiced sequence. Breach, split, sort, claim. The city's heart didn't stop. It was audited, and you, standing in the thin hour between night and decree, understand the worst of it. Delhi hasn't just been defeated. It's been organised by someone else's will. Empires can forgive wounds. They do not recover from replacement spines. The drums, content with their day's work, sleep. The list do not. The morning after Delhi's surrender is deceptively calm. A weak winter sun filters through the haze, glinting off the domes of mosques and the spears of watchmen now standing under foreign banners. The streets smell of smoke, dung and stale incense, the scent of a city holding its breath. You walk through the Chandni Chowk, and at first glance it looks as if life is returning. Merchants emerge cautiously from behind charred shutters. Women sweep dust from their doorways. Even a few hawkers call out half-heartedly. But the voices sound hollow, forced, like actors pretending normality before the final act. The people of Delhi have learned to move quietly, to keep their eyes low. Everyone knows the real decision has not yet been made. Timur, conqueror of a continent, sits inside the former palace of the Tughlaqs, now his headquarters, a great echoing hall where jewelled columns cast fractured light. His generals kneel before him, Pir Muhammad, Miranshah, Shah Rukh, and others, their armour still flecked with soot. On a low table before them lie scrolls, coins, and a ledger thicker than any holy book, a catalogue of Delhi's wealth. The scribes have counted everything. 20,000 elephants, 50,000 horses, countless slaves, jewels, silks, spices, gold. Timur listens in silence, his eyes half closed, his fingers drumming the hilt of his sword. Then, softly he asks, "How many of my soldiers were slain yesterday?" "Perhaps 1,000, Majesty," a general replies. Timur's eyes open, sharp as knives. 1,000? He stands, limping toward the balcony. Outside he can see the city, vast, wounded, glimmering faintly under the pale light. He has taken Delhi, but conquest alone does not satisfy him. He's a man who believes that terror is the highest form of governance. He turns back to his council. "They say the people of this city still harbour defiance," he says quietly. "They whisper rebellion. They gather weapons in the alleys. Shall I wait for them to test me?" No one answers. The silence itself gives permission. Timur nods once. "Then we will answer first." The order is simple, clear, merciless. Every soldier is to kill every captive, rebel or male inhabitant capable of bearing arms. Women and children are to be taken as slaves. No exceptions, no appeals. His scribes record the decree in elegant Persian script, sealing it with his signet ring, a diamond engraved with the word Allah's Wrath. By midday, the horns sound across the city. At first, no one understands. In the bazaar, traders look up from their wares, confused. Then the screams begin, sharp, distant, unmistakable. The massacre has started. Timur's troops move with precision, house by house, street by street. There is no frenzy, just a grim, mechanical efficiency. Doors are kicked in, men dragged out. Blades rise and fall in rhythmic silence. The conqueror's discipline has turned to slaughter's mathematics. You stand near the Kalan Masjid and watch the crowd of captives herded into the square. Old men clutch their beards, boys cry for mothers who will never arrive. A soldier reads out the decree in a calm voice. Then the killing begins. Screams echo off the walls. Blood pools between the cobblestones, mixing with the dust to form dark mud. Birds circle overhead, startled by the noise, then settle to feast on what they can. The sound of death becomes almost constant, like rain but heavier. By afternoon, every district of Delhi burns. Fire leaps from roof to roof, fed by oil and wind. The sky turns black, and ash drifts like snow. The flames devour homes, mosques, palaces, libraries, centuries of civilization erased in hours. In the Sultan's former harem, jewelled fountains now run red. The marble floors of the palace crack from heat. Even the great mosque where Timur prayed the day before fills with smoke. Its carpets curl and shrivel. Not everyone dies quickly. Some hide in wells, others in granaries or underground tunnels. Timur's soldiers find them all. Outside the walls, the slaughtered captives from the previous day's battle lie unburied. The vultures are so thick they blot out the sun. Inside, a strange quiet begins to creep through the noise. When an entire city screams, silence becomes its echo. By sunset, even the killers grow weary. The fires burn on without them. Timur sits once more on the palace balcony, watching Delhi burn. The heat touches his face, the same face that has watched Samarkand rise and Baghdad fall. His expression is not joy, not rage, just focus. To him, this is completion. A court scribe approaches hesitantly. "Majesty," he whispers, "how shall I record this day?" Timur looks at him for a long moment, then replies, "Write that the people of Delhi offended the order of God. I was sent to correct it." The scribe bows, trembling. His pen shakes as he writes the words that will haunt history. By midnight, the fires have devoured half the city. The moon rises blood-red over the domes. The wind carries ash and prayers alike into the Yamuna. You wander the ruined streets. Everywhere there is motion. Flames twisting, shadows flitting, bodies swaying from collapsed balconies. Somewhere, a lute still plays, absurdly, as if sound could claim beauty back from horror. Near the Kari Bauli, a woman sits beside a well, her dress torn, her face blank. In her lap lies a child who no longer breathes. She rocks gently, humming. A soldier passes by, looks once, and keeps walking. Even pity has burned out. By dawn, Delhi is no longer a city. It is a grave. The living search through the ashes for the dead outnumbering them 100-fold. The air tastes of salt and smoke. The Yamuna, once blue, runs thick and brown. The corpses pile high enough to block its flow. Timur rides through the ruins at sunrise. He says nothing. His men lower their heads as he passes. On the steps of the Grand Mosque, he pauses, watching the smoke drift into the sky. "A fitting offering," he murmurs. Behind him, a general asks softly, "Majesty, what shall we do with the bodies?" Timur doesn't turn. "Leave them," he says. "Let the city remember what obedience costs when it's delayed." And with that he rides on, through the ashes of palaces, through the silence of slaughter, through a city that once sang and now only whispers. That night, the stars reflect faintly in puddles of blood where once fountains had played. The wind moves through the broken arches like breath through a throat that cannot speak. Delhi will speak again one day, but it will never sound the same. The smoke still lingers over Delhi, coiling lazily in the pale morning light. It smells of soot, salt, and something metallic, like the breath of a forge after the fire has died. The city lies broken beneath it, half ruined, half silent, a mosaic of blackened walls and ashes. The air feels heavy, as though even the wind is mourning. And in the centre of it all sits Timur, the conqueror of the age, the wolf of Transoxiana. Not on a battlefield now, but on a gilded chair in the courtyard of the Sultan's palace, presiding over the ashes as though they were his court. Around him stand his generals and scribes, the smoke curling between them like incense at a funeral. The massacre is done. The city is quiet. Now comes the justification, the act of turning horror into history. Timur's scribe, Sharaf ad-Din Ali Yazdi, kneels beside him with parchment and ink. The conqueror's voice is calm, low, deliberate. Right, he says, right that we came to Delhi as instruments of divine correction. Its people turned from righteousness, their rulers from justice. The Eternal sent me to restore balance, to cleanse impurity with the fire of faith. The scribe nods, pen scratching steadily. He has learned never to flinch. Timur gestures toward the city beyond the courtyard. Look, he says softly, and you see? This is what happens when men forget order. When kings grow lazy and their people corrupt, the world cries out. I only answered the cry. His son, Shah Rukh, standing nearby, looks away. He has seen many cities burn, but none so bright. Father, he ventures carefully, they were Muslims too. Was this truly God's will? Timur turns to him, his pale eyes narrowing. Faith is not a robe one wears while stealing, he says. They prayed with their lips but built idols in their hearts. Gold, pride, indulgence. What is faith without discipline? What is mercy without fear? No one dares answer. He rises, slowly, stiffly, his limp more pronounced now after weeks in the saddle. His armour gleams dark against the smoke, every dent a memory. He steps forward to the edge of the terrace and looks out across Delhi. From here, the city resembles a carcass after feasting. Bones of stone, sinews of smoke, scraps of colour fluttering where banners used to be. Timur breathes deeply, as if inhaling the moment. Then he calls for his prayer rug. His guards unroll it at his feet, crimson silk embroidered with gold verses. He kneels upon it facing west. His forehead touches the ground, his lips whisper the same prayers as the men he slaughtered. For a moment, there is nothing but the murmur of faith amid the silence of death. When he rises, he says, the sword is sharp, but prayer is sharper. God let me both. Behind him, the generals shift uneasily. They understand his words, but not his calm. They've seen him order executions without blinking, build towers of skulls without remorse. But to pray over the ruins, to call it justice, that's something different. Timur turns toward his scribes again. Write this too, he says, that I spared those who obeyed, that I punished only the rebellious. Let no man say Timur kills without reason. The scribe hesitates. Everyone in the courtyard knows there are no survivors left to contradict him. Timur notices the pause and smiles faintly. History, he says, belongs to the hand that writes it. He limps toward a low marble basin, once a fountain, now filled with rainwater streaked red with ash. He dips his hands in it, washing away the soot. Tomorrow, he says to Miransha, we depart. Delhi has learned its lesson. Miransha bows but glances uneasily at the city. And what lesson is that, father? That peace is born from fear, Timur replies, and that order is written in fire. In the days that follow, Timur begins his judgment of the city. Not merely the killing, but the accounting. Survivors are rounded up. Artisans, scholars, builders, scribes, jewellers, blacksmiths. Each is questioned, tested, sorted. The conqueror's officers mark foreheads with charcoal. To live, to serve, to die. The chosen craftsmen will march north to Samarkand to build the mosques and palaces Timur has dreamed of. The rest will stay behind to rebuild Delhi's ruins for whoever dares to rule after him. In the Grand Mosque, which still stands though half burned, Timur convenes a gathering of his imams. They chant verses of triumph, praising the victory of the faithful over corruption. One young imam's voice trembles as he recites, God is severe in retribution. Timur nods approvingly. Yes, he says, and merciful in his wisdom. He instructs the imams to deliver a sermon across the camp. Let every soldier know he has done holy work. The words ripple through the ranks, soothing whatever unease might remain. Even the killers need a gospel. At night, Timur receives delegations. Local nobles offering gold, poets offering praise, and spies offering secrets. He rewards them all with the same measured grace, his words smooth as oil. Serve me, he tells them, and your lands will flourish. None dare mention that nothing around them is left alive to flourish upon. Yet, amid the ruin, he still dreams. In his tent, by lamplight, he unfolds a parchment sketch of Samarkand, the city of turquoise domes he is turning into the jewel of the world. He traces with his finger the outline of its grand mosque, its gardens, its marble gates. Delhi's marble will shine there, he murmurs. From their ruin, I build perfection. He pauses, looks at his hand, steady, scarred and stained from the ink of his chroniclers. Even God, he says softly, needed clay to make man. Outside, the fires finally begin to die. The city settles into a low moan of mourning. Dogs prowling, crows calling, the faint sound of weeping from cellars where a few survivors hide. Timur's camp remains immaculate. The tents are arranged in rows, the horses brushed to a mirror sheen. Soldiers polish their armour, count their loot, pray at sunset. To them, Delhi is already a memory, another chapter in the long book of conquest. On the last evening before departure, Timur rides once more through the ruined streets. His guards clear the way, his horse's hooves strike sparks from the stones. He passes through the Chandni Chowk, the marketplace that once glittered with life, now carpeted in ash. The moonlight reflects in puddles dark as ink. He halts at the gate of the Jama Masjid and looks back at the city. His voice is low, almost tender. I gave them a warning written in fire. If they forget it, others will remind them. He lifts his hand and makes the sign to his men, a small, almost absent gesture. Behind him, the trumpets sound. The army begins to move. The columns stretch north, toward the plains, toward the road that will lead them home. Carts creak under treasure and captives. The black banners ripple against the grey sky. Behind them, Delhi smoulders, silent, broken, judged. The conqueror does not look back. For him, justice has been served, the world corrected, the ledger balanced. But you, standing on the city's ruined walls, can see what he cannot, that the smoke rising from Delhi does not rise straight. It twists, it writhes, it refuses to go quietly. And in that twisting, in that smoke, there is the beginning of something that even Timur's order cannot extinguish. Memory. The sky over Delhi has turned a strange, dull grey. Neither smoke nor cloud, just the ghost of fire refusing to leave. The city still smoulders, but now it does so quietly, the way grief hums after the scream has passed. In the alleys, the smell of death has thickened into a background scent, like old incense burned too long. The Yamuna drifts sluggishly past the walls, carrying ash, wood, and memory downstream. It is the first week of January 1399, and Timur is ready to go home. The conqueror's camp stirs before dawn. Horns sound deep and steady. Horses snort and stamp. The black banners of Transoxiana unfurl once more in the cold wind. Tents vanish in minutes, struck and folded by men who could do it blindfolded. To an untrained eye it looks like chaos, but every movement follows an invisible pattern, the choreography of departure, learned over decades of campaign. You walk through the camp as it dissolves. Artisans captured from Delhi are being chained together, goldsmiths, stonemasons, calligraphers, engineers, their faces hollow, their hands still trembling from what they've seen. They are valuable now, more than any jewel or coin. Timur has no intention of wasting them here. They will build me paradise, he says, in Samarkand. Behind them march the soldiers, their saddlebags stuffed with loot, gold bangles, carved ivory, jeweled daggers, silk, spices, even temple bells. Some drag elephants laden with treasure. Others lead lines of slaves, men and women from every corner of the subcontinent. The conqueror himself rides at the head of the column, mounted on a white stallion covered in brocade. His limp is more pronounced than ever, but his posture remains perfect, his gaze straight ahead. The men say he hasn't smiled since the night of the massacre. On the morning of departure, Timur orders a final inspection. He rides slowly through the burnt northern gate, pausing to study the ruins. What was once a grand arch now leans like an exhausted giant. The stones are blackened. The inscription praising Allah's mercy has cracked clean in half. Timur stops and stares at it for a long moment. Even stone grows proud, he murmurs, and so it must crumble. A general beside him, Pir Muhammad, tired and grey-eyed, asks softly, Majesty, shall we rebuild the gate before we go? To mark our rule? Timur shakes his head. No. Let ruin speak for me. It tells the story better than marble ever could. He turns his horse toward the open plain. The wind from the north carries the smell of dust, freedom, and faintly, of home. Before leaving the city, Timur performs one last ritual. In the courtyard of the Grand Mosque, he gathers his officers and the imams who have accompanied his army. The sun sits low behind the haze, its light the colour of rust. Timur kneels to pray, his voice steady and strong, rising above the whisper of wind. "O God," he says, "I have done your will among the faithless. I have punished the corrupt and exalted your law. If my hand was cruel, it was in service of the order. Forgive me where I have erred, and bless the road that leads me home." When he finishes, no one speaks. Even the wind seems to pause. The imams murmur Amin, their faces pale, their faith trying to make sense of what obedience to heaven has cost earth. Timur stands, adjusts his sword belt, and says quietly, "The city is judged. Let it bury its dead." Then he mounts his horse. The horns sound once more, and the long line of soldiers, slaves, and wagons begins to move. The earth trembles under the weight of them. From the walls, a handful of surviving citizens watch in silence, hollow-eyed ghosts of Delhi's former life. Some clutch children, others carry nothing at all. No one dares to shout curses. They simply stare as the army snakes northward, a dark river of steel and smoke. Outside the city, the march resumes its relentless rhythm. Drums set the pace. 2 slow beats, 1 pause, over and over. The banners flutter against the cold sky. Behind Timur stretch miles of humanity. Captives chained together, ox carts groaning under treasure, columns of cavalry glinting in the sun. Ahead lies the road through Haryana and Punjab, already stripped bare by the same army only weeks ago. Along the way, the conqueror's men collect tribute from whatever towns still breathe. Some rulers crawl to the roadside offering gifts, hoping he'll pass without noticing them. Others flee, leaving behind empty forts and burned villages. Timur neither slows nor smiles. He has no time left for conquest, only for return. In Panipat, where the blood of the first great battle still stains the earth, he orders a new column of skulls to be raised, a monument to remembrance, he says. The soldiers obey, stacking the bones of the fallen into a pale tower that gleams under the winter sun. "Let travellers see," Timur tells his scribe, "and know the price of arrogance." When the army reaches Tulamba, the ruins are still smoking from his earlier visit. Here, Timur halts the march and summons his craftsmen, the Indian builders, masons, and sculptors chosen from Delhi. "You will make something better from this wreckage," he tells them. "In Samarkand, you will build the Bibi Khanum Mosque, a monument to God and to my glory." The captives nod mutely. They have learned what refusal means. That night, in his camp, Timur writes letters to kings and sultans across Asia, boasting of his conquest. "I entered Delhi," he dictates, "and the infidels fell before the might of the faithful." The treasures of India now adorn the throne of Islam. The scribes dip their pens in black ink and write carefully, omitting the smell of smoke, the sound of crying, the rivers choked with corpses. As the days pass, the army shrinks, men deserting in secret, captives dying on the road, horses collapsing under weight too great to bear. Still, the column moves like a living organism, its bones and blood driven by one will. When they reach Lahore, the city's governor comes out barefoot, carrying bread and salt as offerings. Timur accepts both, then gestures toward the half-ruined walls. "You are spared," he says, "for knowing how to kneel." From Lahore, he turns his gaze toward Khyber and the passes beyond. The mountains rise like a jagged wall, cold, merciless, familiar. He knows that beyond them lies Samarkand, his beloved capital, where architects already prepare foundations, and where turquoise domes wait for marble from Delhi. The army begins its ascent. The path is narrow and steep, the air thin. Many stumble, some freeze, but none complain. The promise of home and the fear of their master drives them onward. At the crest of the Khyber Pass, Timur halts his horse. Below him, the plains of India stretch vast and hazy. dotted with rivers that glimmer like liquid glass. The smoke from Delhi is still faintly visible, a smudge on the far horizon. He watches it for a long time. The wind tugs at his cloak, cold and sharp. "Beautiful land," he says quietly, "too soft for strong men." Then he turns his horse north and without another glance rides down the far slope. Behind him, the army follows, a mile-long river of exhaustion and wealth, blood and brilliance, the last echo of a storm that has already spent itself. And far to the south, Delhi lies silent, her palaces empty, her gardens blackened, her streets littered with the bones of an empire that thought itself eternal. Silence has weight, and in Delhi, it feels heavier than stone. The city that once echoed with the clang of markets and the laughter of courtiers now speaks only in whispers. The hiss of the wind through cracked domes, the drip of water from broken aqueducts, the cry of crows circling above ruins that used to be homes. The conqueror has gone north, taking his banners, his treasure, and his terror with him. What remains behind is not life, not yet, but the aftertaste of death. You walk through the northern gate, where the bricks still smell of ash. The once grand inscription praising victory and faith has split down the middle, its letters half gone, its meaning lost. The street beyond is a corridor of ruin. Houses gape open like skulls. Charred beams hang overhead like ribs. The only people moving are the scavengers, barefoot children, widows and old men, picking through debris for food or cloth. The markets that once dazzled travellers from Cairo to Kashgar now lie drowned in dust. The jewel bazaar, once a corridor of light, is blackened and empty, save for a few surviving parrots muttering broken phrases of human speech. Fragments of lost commerce. The air hums with flies. The wells are choked with ash. In the mosques, the call to prayer has ceased. The muezzins are dead, their minarets cracked. The Grand Mosque stands half-burned, its dome open to the sky, its marble floor black with soot. And yet sometimes a few survivors gather there at dawn, their voices thin, trembling, to whisper prayers to a god who seems to have gone somewhere else. There are no rulers, no guards, no court. The Sultan's palace is a husk, its walls scorched, its fountains dry. The emerald banner that once flew above it was carried away, perhaps to Samarkand, perhaps to dust. Rats move freely through the throne room where kings once sat. The jewels have been stripped, but the mirrors remain, reflecting only emptiness. And yet, amid this devastation, life flickers stubbornly. In the lanes near Nizamuddin, the poor return first. They have nowhere else to go. They rebuild with what they can: mud, debris, broken tiles. A woman plants mustard seeds in a courtyard where bodies once lay. Children chase each other between blackened walls, their laughter strange and fragile like glass. When night falls, the survivors gather around fires, sharing food, silence, and stories. Everyone tells their own version of the horror. Some say Timur's men numbered 100,000, others 1,000,000. Some say the river ran red for 7 days, others that it stopped flowing altogether. Memory has already begun to exaggerate, the mind's way of translating the unthinkable into myth. But certain details everyone remembers: the drums that never stopped, the smell of oil and flesh, the way the conqueror's eyes looked through people as if they were already ghosts. A month passes, the rains come early, they fall on ruins and ashes alike, turning the streets into rivers of grey mud. Bones wash free from shallow graves. The living learn to step carefully, but the rain also brings the first sound of cleansing, the hiss of water on stone, the sigh of dust turning to earth again. In the palace quarter, a handful of surviving officials try to restore order. They draft decrees no one reads, stamp documents for a city that no longer exists. The seals are still wet when the wind blows them away. Power itself seems embarrassed to be here. You find the Sufi shrine of Nizamuddin Auliya, miraculously untouched. Its courtyard glows with the lamps lit by trembling hands. The keeper, a blind man who never fled, says quietly, "The saint protected this place." His breath is stronger than fire. People come at night to pray, to weep, to remind themselves that holiness can survive horror. They leave offerings of bread, coins, and tears. Somewhere in the Kalan Bazaar, a poet has survived too. He sits beneath a broken arch, writing verses with charcoal on the back of a burnt ledger. His hand shakes, but the words come anyway. The city is not dead, only dreaming. The wind carries our names to the ash. One day, another dawn will hear them. The poem passes from hand to hand, whispered like a secret spell. Weeks turn into months, the vultures thin out, the jackals move on. Flowers begin to grow in the cracks of the old walls, stubborn, yellow, defiant. Life, indifferent and infinite, returns as it always does. But Delhi is not what it was. It will never be. Travellers who arrive from the west now call it the ghost city. They say the silence is so deep you can hear your own heartbeat echo off the minarets. Some claim to see shadows walking at dusk. Soldiers, merchants, dancers, kings, reenacting their old lives in endless loops. The locals say it's the souls of those who died without burial, still waiting for a city to remember them. By the second year, the population begins to grow again. Refugees drift in from the countryside. Traders return, cautious but hungry for profit. The bazaars reopen in fragments. Coins are minted with new names, new rulers, new promises. Delhi has been destroyed before, and it will rise again, not out of faith, not out of loyalty, but because humans cannot resist rebuilding the very things that hurt them. Still, the wounds remain visible. Every wall bears scorch marks. Every courtyard hides a story. Every elder carries in their eyes a question they can't stop asking. Was it worth it? Did God truly need so much fire to make a point? At night, the wind moves through the empty palace halls, rattling loose shutters, whispering across marble floors. It sounds almost like voices, the echo of a court that refuses to fade completely. And if you stand there long enough, listening, you might almost hear them. The rhythm of the old city's heartbeat returning, slow but steady. The fires are gone, the blood has dried, the conqueror has vanished into legend, but the ghosts, they stay. They walk the streets as guardians of memory, unseen but patient, ensuring no one forgets what arrogance and power can do when dressed as divine purpose. And sometimes, when the wind changes, Delhi seems to breathe again, not in glory, but in grief, and in that grief, a strange kind of grace. The years after Timur's departure pass like slow smoke rising from a dying fire, curling upward, thinning, then vanishing into the wind. Delhi no longer burns, but neither does it live the way it once did. What remains is a city between breaths, balanced on the fragile edge between ruin and remembrance. The Tughlaq dynasty, already crumbling before Timur's invasion, never recovers. Sultan Nasir-ud-Din Mahmud, who fled into the countryside with what remained of his court, drifts like a ghost through the villages of northern India, a king without a city, an echo without a throne. His retinue grows smaller with every mile. Some die, others desert. When he finally returns to Delhi months later, he finds not a capital but a corpse, a blackened skyline, the smell of smoke still trapped in the stones. He dismounts before the Siri Palace, now roofless and half buried in ash. His footsteps crunch on shattered glass and scorched marble. The throne room is empty except for bats nesting where ministers once argued about taxes and poetry. When he sits once more on the throne, it creaks beneath his weight. He looks round at the ruins and whispers, "We are all exiles now." The court that reforms around him is a shadow play, titles without meaning, decrees without teeth. Delhi's power has evaporated like perfume left uncorked in the sun. Beyond the city, regional governors carve up provinces, mint their own coins, and swear loyalty to whoever they think might survive next. The Sultanate of Delhi, once the heart of an empire stretching from Bengal to Sindh, becomes little more than a rumour whispered between scavenged walls. You walk through its remains, through House Khas, where the great reservoir lies half dry and green with scum, through Mehrauli, where the wind moves through tombs that once promised eternity, through the Qutub complex, where pigeons roost atop the minarets of a faith that has learned to pray in silence. But life, stubborn as ever, begins again. Merchants return, pilgrims arrive, and peasants till the fields outside the city's battered walls. From the ashes rises a smaller Delhi, poorer, humbler but breathing. The poor rebuild first. Mud houses where marble palaces once stood, huts made of the ruins of grandeur. The city eats itself to survive. Poets wander through the ruins, unable to resist the pull of tragedy. One of them, a young man named Siraj, writes, "The city is ash, yet still it glows. Its breath a sigh, its heart a coal. We live where angels fear to tread, and walk on embers that remember." The words spread quietly, copied by hand, carried by traders. In the centuries to come, they'll become prophecy. For Delhi will rise and fall and rise again, as if the city's soul is addicted to both glory and grief. But for now, in the closing years of the 14th century, the city is a widow of empires. The Mongol fires have left behind famine and disease. Graves fill faster than wells. The survivors burn the dead in secret, fearing plague more than ghosts. The Yamuna, once clear, carries black silt from the bones of men and horses alike, and somewhere far to the north in Samarkand, Timur celebrates. His architects, using the marble and artisans taken from Delhi, build the Bibi Khanum Mosque, a structure so vast that its dome could swallow a city gate. The conqueror watches its turquoise tiles rise and declares, "This is how God rewards those who serve his will." But even in Samarkand, whispers follow him. They say his horses never neigh again without shuddering. They say he dreams of a river running red. They say he sometimes wakes in the night, reaching for his sword, certain he still hears the screams of Delhi. Years later, when Timur dies on campaign in the cold plains of Kazakhstan, his body is carried back to Samarkand in a silver casket. His epitaph reads, "When I rise, the world will tremble." And indeed, centuries later, when archaeologists open his tomb in 1941, the world plunges into war within days, proving perhaps that some conquerors never truly sleep. Back in Delhi, time stitches over wounds the way moss hides cracks in stone. A new dynasty, the Sayyids, then the Lodis, takes root in the city's fragile soil. They rebuild palaces, dig canals, raise minarets. The ghosts watch from the shadows and do not interfere. Delhi has learned how to forget, and then to pretend it never forgot. But the scars remain for those who know where to look. The old drains under Chandni Chowk still run red when it rains hard enough. The wells around Siri still smell faintly of rust. Some say that on winter nights when the fog rolls in from the Yamuna, you can hear hoofbeats, slow, deliberate, the sound of a limp keeping time with destiny. Centuries will pass. Babur will come from the north and build a new empire upon the bones of this one. The Mughals will make Delhi their jewel again, covering its wounds with marble and music. Shah Jahan will raise domes that catch the sun like mirrors. Poets will call it the refuge of the world once more. And yet, under every layer of beauty, the ashes of 1398 will remain, the silent witness to how easily paradise burns. You walk one last time through the ruins of the old palace, now overgrown with weeds. The moonlight spills through broken arches. Somewhere in the distance a nightjar sings. You can almost imagine you hear the voices of the dead, merchants haggling, soldiers laughing, muezzins calling, the rhythm of a city that refuses to die. Delhi has always belonged to no one and everyone, a city that devours its conquerors and turns their victories into dust. Timur thought he had erased it, but the city endures, patient as earth. Its spirit whispers to anyone who will listen, "You may burn us, but we will grow from the smoke." The conqueror is gone. The dynasty is dust. The world has moved on, but the ashes of the Sultanate still glow faintly under the soil, waiting for another dawn, and another empire foolish enough to believe that Delhi can ever truly be conquered. The wind rises, the lamps flicker, the city exhales, and somewhere beneath the ruins the heart of Delhi beats again. Good night, sweet dreams. The conqueror's hoofprints fade with the wind, but his shadow will not.